Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John. We're still in John chapter 19, looking at the crucifixion. Today we're looking at verse 30, when Jesus speaks his final word from the cross. I said in yesterday's session that in the Gospels we find Jesus' 7 statements from the cross, often referred to as the 7 last words. Now, no one Gospel contains all 7. But when we put the Gospels together, we see all 7 of the words. John has 3 of them. We've already looked at 2, where he speaks to his mother, "Woman, here's your son." And then to John the disciple, "Here's your mother." And then what we saw yesterday, he says, "I am thirsty." But just to remind us, even though this is a study of John, let's remind ourselves of what all 7 of the words are and where they're located. The first word is, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." That's in Luke chapter 23. And then, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Jesus spoke that word to one of the thieves on the cross next to him. That's also in Luke chapter 23. And then the one we've already seen in John 19, "Woman, here is your son." And then in both Mark and Matthew, the word, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And then in John, as we've already seen, "I am thirsty." We saw that yesterday. And then again in Luke 23, Jesus says, "Into your hands I commend my spirit." And then the final word, which we have in John, is, "It is finished." That's in verse 30. Let's read it. "And when Jesus had received the drink, he said, 'It is finished.' With that, he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit." It is finished. Now, what did Jesus mean by that? Now, none of the other Gospels mention that saying. Only John has this saying. But all of the other Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, talk about Jesus giving a great cry before he died. They all mention he gave a great cry, a shout, as it were, before he died. John tells us what that shout was. It is the word, "It is finished." Now, in the Greek of John, that is one word. I mean, we translate it into 3 words, "It is finished," but it is one word in the original Greek of John, and it is a cry of triumph. It is done. It is complete. It is finished. Remember, all through the Gospel of John, Jesus had talked about the hour has not yet come. But now at the cross, the hour has arrived. The hour for which he came, the moment to complete the mission, to give himself in sacrificial atonement as our Passover lamb. And as Jesus is now ready to die, gives up his spirit, he cries out, "It is complete. It is finished." So this word, "it is finished," is not defeat. It's not a cry of resignation to the fact they've taken my life. No, it is that voice of absolute triumph. Though the evil one thought by engineering the crucifixion of Jesus he would defeat the plan, oh no. It is in that very moment of sacrificial atonement, Jesus completes the plan, completes the mission, and salvation is purchased for all humanity. It is done. So this last word of Jesus, this final cry from the cross, is absolute triumph, absolute victory. That's why Matthew, Mark, and Luke all say it was a shout, a cry. John tells us what it was. It is done. Jesus has accomplished the purpose for which he came. He has given himself as our Passover lamb for our salvation, for our deliverance. By his blood shed on the cross, we are free. By his blood shed on the cross, we are covered. By his blood shed on the cross, we are delivered. Oh, what a moment it was of absolute triumph. And Jesus cries out that voice of victory, "It is finished." Yes, indeed, the Passover lamb has been given for us, and by his blood we are saved. Moment of triumph, moment of victory. The hour had come, and Jesus accomplished the mission for which he had come, our salvation. In tomorrow's session, we'll look at what happens after the crucifixion, what they do, and how Jesus is buried. But we'll begin to look at that tomorrow. So join us next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John.